Hello and welcome to XLNC Heavyweight Week 2. My name is Diatripa. I am joined by Rudude, and we will be acting as your analyst desk as we jump into this best of 3 series that we have for you tonight. Booyah Exiles versus CGC, who we both saw perform on CGC's side quite convincingly well, and on Booyah Exiles just barely losing barely losing their series to Akuma Glaives. Now, interestingly, Booyah Exiles was without their main support last week, and this week we have a sub out in mid lane for the side of CGC. Now, Rudude, how do you think that we'll see that play out in the context of these games?
Yes, of course, last week, Booyah Exiles, as you mentioned, had a substitute support, which doesn't just affect one particular role. Support is very impactful across the map, can synergize well with junglers, synergizes obviously the most with ADC, and handicapping those roles really limits us in our knowledge of how well Booyah Exiles can play when they are as a full 5-man stack. And obviously we saw CGC last week, we didn't see, but we know from last week that CGC really tore up their opponents in their 2-game best of 3. And without their core mid laner, I'm Little Boy here, this could be 2 entirely different teams, and sort of all bets are off when it comes to this because we've got 2 different sides facing each other than played last week.
Absolutely. I'm really excited, especially to see what CGC pull out, because I felt like last week, looking at the stats sheets, that their mid laner was such an important part of the way that they actually play the game and execute through, especially into the late game. And so I wonder if this sub can kind of fill the same realm as that. And then on the other side, I'm looking at Booyah Exiles and wondering, hey, is their support perhaps also their shot caller? Because I did feel like their bot lane was falling quite far behind on a not just mechanical level, and I'd really like to see them pull that back, especially in this series, because playing with a weak side of the map is going to be really, really difficult, and so hopefully this will sort of shore that up. But speaking of that, what kind of areas of the map do you think are going to be perhaps the strengths for these 2 teams?
Yeah, so I think looking at it, if CGC are playing with a substitute mid laner, then likelihood is that they probably won't try and play through there, just because of a lack of familiarity with the team and with the role itself. They'll probably just stick it on a stable mid laner and then play out through bot lane is what I would most likely expect. Obviously, iTurtle, I think you had a nice statistic that he had 25% of the gold share, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so he's been funneled a lot of resources, funneled a lot of gold on the CGC side, and they really want him to be the focal point of their team comp to just carry in late games team fights. Absolutely. Their top laner, no slouch either, though, so I think that's kind of where Booyah Exiles is going to be aiming towards finding, in my opinion, an advantage in the top side, because Angry Top Laner does, especially in their second game last week, have the ability to take over a game on something like an Aurelia. First of all, I need the Aurelia to be banned. But secondly, I do think that we're looking at a top laner who is going to want a lot of resources to be able to play that strong side of the map and kind of bring his team through the mid game and let his bot lane sort of scale up, especially because you get a lot of AD carries that need time, especially the more powerful ones right now. And so I'm really curious to see how CGC's top laner performs into what I expect to be quite a lot of pressure. Yeah, I'd agree with that. We're going to have to see if, obviously, Full Ride is able to pick up some, obviously, more... He'll have a little bit more pressure this time because, as you mentioned, Angry Top Laner plays those more carry-oriented picks. And I believe last week, Full Ride played 2 Malphite games, if I'm not mistaken, might be there, but, not necessarily the carrying role that the other top laners can provide, necessarily. And I want to talk quickly about obviously the fact that we're playing on a new patch. We're on 10.15 this week, not 10.14, and we're going to be with the buffs and nerfs coming through. Just a quick touch on the fact that Aphelios power pick got nerfed quite heavily. Thresh and Ornn as well, 2 really high tier champions for their respective roles, both got nerfed. Armor reduction on Ornn, a little bit of Thresh nerfing here and there as well, but other than that, look to see if those picks have any less priority. But other than that, that's the basic roundup of competitive 10-15 changes.
Yeah, and we had a little bit of conversation before this. We also will not be seeing Lilia this week for any of the viewers who haven't read the rulebook at home. That isn't going to be able to come in for at least the next 2 weeks, so you are safe. Don't expect the spice too soon. And I know that both of us prepared predictions, and we talked a little bit about this just before we got online. But what kind of games do you think we're looking at here for CGC and Booyah?
So before I knew that CGC were playing with a substitute mid laner, I had this down as a 2-0 to CGC. Even with Booyah Exiles having their full support back, I was still convinced that CGC would be able to take this easily. But obviously we're still early on into the split. We don't have a full understanding of how the teams want to play out and the relative power to one another. So it's still all up in the air as to which team is best. I'm going to stick with the CGC win, but I'm actually going to go at 2-1, just because I feel like the unfamiliarity with the mid lane could cost them a game with a few little growing pains or teething problems.
Absolutely. I think that's a totally valid valid argument for CGC 2-1. I'm also actually CGC favored. I'm looking at them to maybe not play around their mid lane as much in the late game, but certainly he wasn't receiving too many resources. But where I think that Booyah Exiles really fell short last week, and what I'd like to see them improve on this week, if they do want to keep this from being a 2-0 in CGC's favor, is their resource allocation. I felt like looking at the post-game stats a lot of the time, we would see CS sort of thrown everywhere to just whoever could get it. And their AD carry, whether he was strong or not, wasn't really able to pick things up around the map. They weren't able to put him where he needed to be. And most of their advantages were found in these fights. And so what I'm looking for is maybe a little less brawl and a little bit more tempo, and seeing where they can start picking gold up off the map that their opponents will then lose.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. With the resource allocation needing to be tightened up a little bit as well.
All right. Well, I know that we are just getting into Pro Draft, and I am super excited for that. So I'm going to throw this over to the casters to bring us into the game.
All right, thank you so much, Analyst Desk, Diatropa, as well as Rude Dude. Appreciate your breaking down of that. We are ready to get into the actual pro draft of this game number 1. Booyah Exiles taking on CGC, the Competitive Gaming Club. I am Jake Kelton, joined by Mitt once again on the casting desk. And as we heard, the analysts, broke down these two teams fairly well. But I want to make sure we introduce the players for tonight's games before we get any further into it. So let's get into the habit of introducing them, and then we'll break down the pro draft as it goes. For Booyah Exiles, playing on the blue side, they have Angry Top Laner in the top lane, Jay Crazy as their jungler, Corin the Cat, their mid laner, Siggy the ADC, and their main starting support that was filled in for last week is back, Brand Z, coming in as their support tonight.
And on the red side of the rift, we have CGC up in the top lane, Ella Full Ride University, we'll call him. In the jungle, Filipino Asian boy, Kyrie the sub for the mid lane coming in. Turtle, not Wild Turtle, just Turtle, domesticated Turtle perhaps, in the AD carry position, and Ratchet00 as the support. I am excited for this one. Oh my gosh, we saw Booyah Exiles last week, and they put on quite a show. I was especially impressed with Corin. His Victor looked very, very nice. 0 deaths, even though his team lost the game, but he still looks very proficient. And last week, it seemed to me like, just looking at the statistics, CGC's mid laner, I'm Little Boy, actually built a Mejai's on Orianna in game 2 of their set, so he was feeling really, really saucy. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kyrie kind of stacks up to the legacy of I'm Little Boy here for CGC going up against Corin, who's already proven himself to be a formidable mid laner.
Yep, but keep in mind, though, that the I'm Little Boy is not actually the mid laner tonight for CGC. It's Kyrie that's filling in. So that, as we said, or the analyst was talking about, could change the story of these teams because they're not the exact same players that were playing last week. Now, I'm not sure whether or not the subbing in from CGC was something that they did because they said, hey, we're so confident that we can take out Booyah Exiles that we want to bring in a sub to play in, get a little bit more starting experience, and take out a mid laner who's quite good, as you were just mentioning. I mean, he literally had the number 2 highest CS across the entire league from last week. Very, very good player, but not playing this week. So, or at least not playing this game. They could sub him in the next game. And it is a best of 3. So it might be that CGC is saying, hey, for this game, we're pulling in Kyrie to start, and we'll see how it does. If we lose this game, then we'll pull in I'm Little Boy as our last-ditch effort to make sure that we can actually win these games if Booyah Exiles proves to be more of a competitor than they were necessarily expecting. We do have the pro draft rolling, and we got to talk about it. Booyah Exiles taking away Sejuani, Zach, Silas, very regular junglers that we're seeing show up a lot in the current meta, as well as CGC taking the Irelia, Victor, and Bard out, and then, as usual, both teams picking up that bottom lane in the first round.
Yeah, and I like seeing the respect here for Corrin's Victor. They're just going to take it off the table right away, give Kyrie at least a little bit better of a matchup. But, I'm pretty sure Corrin can bust out something like a Cassiopeia, Orianna, Syndra. Those are going to be highly contested picks, but probably going to get banned away in round 2. I would like to see like a round 3, pick 3 for either of these teams be like something like an Orianna. But regardless, I like the way these drafts are shaping up already. We're picking up Volibear, lots of tank, great dives, Ashe for great picks, Thresh for great picks. I mean, Booyah is already looking to be pulling up a nice pick composition, while UIC is leaning more towards like a team fighting peeling comp with the Karma and the Ezreal. So we're going to have to see what they pick for third pick, and it's going to be a Wukong, which is very interesting.
It's a bit more team fighting. The ultimate can be reactivated, lots of knockups, lots of engage, and a very strong top laner for full ride. But one of the things that is something to note is this is not an early game powerhouse. At least so far, they're not picking champions that you're going to see really scuffling super hard around those early Drakes. This is a mid game where the Ezreal has been able to finish off that tier, pick up the Manamune. This is a Karma that's probably going to build an Ardent Censer unless she's in the mid lane. This is a Wukong that's going to need at least an item or two to really start to take over, dealing damage, not just bringing crowd control. Whereas Booyah Exiles, even from the very beginning of the game, level 1, level 2, could start some fights off because you have the slows, the stuns, the roots, the hooks, all of those things combined together. So I'd like to see Booyah Exiles with this pick that they're starting to grab, look for early aggression and really just try to run CGC down before they have the opportunity to get any footing in the game. As we're into the second bans, Malphite and Zillion taken off the table.
Yeah, and in order to do that, you really need jungle control early on, like you said. So that means you need an early game wave clear in the mid lane. So something with a lot of wave clear, something like an Orianna. Echo can even do it with his Time Winder. There's plenty of choices there in the mid lane, but you do need that wave clear. Something that doesn't have a whole lot of wave clear, a lot of single target damage. Something like, I'm thinking just off the top of my head, like a Veigar, but who picks Veigar nowadays anyways? But an Orianna, I think, would just slot in super well for Exiles here. Gives you that early game pushing power, gives you that early game priority to be able to go make those roams, and still has great team fighting in the mid to late game, which is what they're looking like, the kind of team comp they want to draft. So then the second question becomes, who's your skirmishing jungler? Is it going to be the Volibear, or are you going to shift the Volibear top and pick something even more aggressive like a Lee Sin, perhaps?
Well, and the fun thing about that, the analyst didn't get to have a whole lot of time to discuss it, is that currently in the league, Olaf is heavily picked and banned and has a 0% win rate, all right? This is a jungler that was typically, according to the LCS professionals, at least a couple of patches ago, very strong, very good at that early game hyper-aggression that you're talking about, and he has a 0% win rate, in the heavy league. So it's really, really fun to see if they decide to actually prioritize that. It looks like both teams are actually delaying jungle to the very last moment, unless Volibear does kind of sidestep into that jungle route instead of being in the top. Set technically can still support top or jungle, so a lot of options there. I do want to note very quickly as well, Rudude actually commented how in the current patch, Thresh did receive some small nerfs, but that wasn't enough for Booyah Exiles to be afraid of picking up anyway, just to pair the crowd control he brings with the Ashe in the bottom lane, as well as provide some heal for it. The Zed being hovered, I don't think they're going to pick it.
I almost had a heart attack there. I was like, drafting full AD in a competitive match against a Maokai is a very bold proposal there. But Corrin does decide to go with the Corki, much more reasonable. Great team fighting, great poke. Once he gets the package, he can kind of slot into the whole pick dive composition as well that these guys are drafting. I mean, I can already see it now, an Ashe era with a Volibear ulti coming in, Corki just packaging over. That's just absolutely terrifying if you're this bot lane to be dealing with. But if there is a bot lane that can handle it, it's something like an Ezreal Lulu. So we are going to see a Karma mid. So, okay, I'm looking at Exiles, right? They've got plenty of damage with the Corki. Ashe is traditionally seen as more of a supportive AD carry, but when she finishes her Runaan's Hurricane and her Bork, she's going to be putting out plenty of damage. So they've got they got a magic damage source, they got a AD damage source, they've got, I got stuff falling over in my background, sorry. We got plenty of CC, we got plenty of AD, we're ready to rock and roll here. But on CGC side, basically the most damage is going to be coming from that Ezreal, and it's going to be mostly AD. Karma's going to be kind of shifted into a more supportive role when it comes to these mid to late game team fights. She's just not going to be pumping out the major damage that you would like to see from a traditional AP carry, something like a Ori, like a Syndra, something like that. So really, it all depends on this Ezreal being able to get to where he needs to be, and these fights not completely disintegrating before he's able to do his damage. It does take some time for Ezreal to ramp up his damage and really get the job done. He doesn't have tremendous burst, but he has great sustained damage, great kiting. But with a Lulu and a Karma, they can stay in these fights for an extended period of time, keep them fighting, and hopefully that's enough for Ezreal to do it. But if somebody gets caught out and dove before the fight even starts, then Exiles are going to have the advantage.
Yeah, I definitely agree. CGC have poured a ton of resources into iTurtle, saying, hey, we really want to rely on this ADC. We want to trust him to be able to carry our team forward. As you mentioned, the support and protectiveness from Lulu and Karma both, as well as the Maokai and Wukong bringing crowd control, frontline tankiness to those fights. I'd like to see this Wukong, because he is slotted into the jungle, building a little bit more damage and maybe some AD burstiness coming out as well. So it's not just Ezreal that they have to be solely reliant on, and if he gets targeted way too heavily in the early game, then you kind of run out of damage and run out of everything. Plus, Karma can build a little bit of AP being in that mid lane, because they did decide to go with the Lulu as a support and swap Karma mid. iTurtle is currently number total 12 in the entire league for number of kills, slotting in at 5th for the total amount of, or just for ADCs, excuse me. As an ADC, number 12 total in the league, number 5 just between the ADCs. SLGL, this guy, or as I call nicknamed Siggy because the L's look like eyes, he's the bottom barrel when it comes to ADCs, which is a little sad to say. Number 27 on the total number of kills for the entire league, and just absolutely 8th place for ADC specifically. So what I want to see in this game, as you're mentioning with CGC and their focus around the Ezreal, is that is someone you can target pick over and over. Don't worry about the Lulu. Don't worry about the Karma. Take Turtle out of the equation, and you'll have a much easier time winning these fights.
Yeah, exactly. And you have the tools to do it. You have plenty of dive, plenty of lockdown. But as long as Lulu stays by her side, it's going to be he's a very slippery champion, right? So it is going to come down to skill at the end of the day. So while Exiles has the tools for execution, CGC has the tools of denial. But it requires proper positioning and proper planning on both of these teams. And I do want to come back to the point you made about if Filipino Asian boy on this Wukong can really get going, if he can like get a ton of AD and just jump in on the Corki and burst him down, that's a lot of their damage that they're going to be missing. Like we said earlier, Ashe is more of a supportive. She does plenty of damage in her own right, but Corki is going to be the main source of damage for a lot of these fights. So if he just explodes right off the bat, then a lot of the damage can evaporate for both of these teams very, very quickly, and then it becomes kind of a slugfest. But there is, Set and Volibear, not to underestimate their damage. They are fighters in their own right. Wukong, of course. Maokai does a surprising amount of damage when he's allowed to just kind of heal over the course of a fight. It's not as flashy as, say, like, a Wukong ulting in or anything like that. But he is going to be auto-attacking, Sunfire caping this entire time, possibly Thorn mailing. So it's not something to just, you can't write off all that damage. It does stack up the longer that he stays alive. And with a Lulu and a Karma, he's probably going to be staying alive for a very, very long time. So Ashe definitely needs that Blade of the Ruined King if they're going to make a go at this Maokai. Executioner's Calling, Morellonomicons, whatever have you. Buy it because you're going to need it. He's going to be healing tons. Karma's probably going to have an Athene's and an Ardent. Lulu probably is going to have some kind of healing in her kit. I wish the Executioner's cut shielding, but it does not, which means it's probably not going to hit Lulu quite as hard. But regardless, it's going to be a good game. Both these teams have drafted compositions that have pretty clearly defined goals. For UIC, it's put a big, beefy front line in front that's going to be staying in the fight for a long time, while Wukong looks for a flank angle and destroys somebody in one hit. Exile's going to be looking for diving, isolated opponents, setting up really good rotations. And in that respect, it's really important that Exiles has very good vision denial, which means that the Corki, I believe it is Volibear, the jungle, yes. So Corki and Volibear, they're going to have to make a lot of moves as a duo in order to deny vision and set up their plays, because they can't really make plays out of nowhere. As soon as somebody's missing on the map, they're going to just, back off. But they can potentially just deny objectives that way. So there's a lot of, as the chess begins for both of these teams. But I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Very skilled players, really good team compositions. I don't see any team as being super above the other one. But, yeah.
Well,
I'm
You
looking
say
forward to
you
this
don't see a team super above the other one, but the analyst desks previous to us getting started tonight were saying that CGC was going to 2-0 this, and that it wasn't even going to be that big of a challenge. And you and I both agreed that at the very least we felt the Booyah Exiles bringing in their starter support would make it a 2-1 in favor of CGC. So we're still expecting CGC to come out of the victory tonight. The question is it a 2-0 or is it a 2-1? Which means that if Booyah Exiles do what we don't believe they can do and win 2 games tonight, that is a massive upset. Really exciting to see if they can actually pull that off. And as you mentioned, the composition overall looks good with the front line of the Set and the Volibear, the Ashe to kind of add the damage to the Corki. My concern there is that you take out those carries of the Corki and Ashe, and then you have all day to beat up on the front line and take them out eventually too. So Booyah Exiles need to do a really good job, as you've mentioned, about positioning and making sure that they are very safe when it comes to these team fights. But I'm also kind of curious to see how many teleports we get in this game if Corki decides to rely on the package or bring the teleport himself into the actual game so that he can be more mobile and join his team for those bigger fights around Drake or around the Rift Herald.
I would love to see teleport on Corki. I mean, barrier would also be a good option, but I think teleports you're just going to get more mileage off of it. And yes, we do see Corrin picking up the teleport. Barrier, in case you're afraid that Wukong's going to, destroy you in one hit, but that's kind of planning for failure. Whereas teleport's the more proactive choice. It lets you do more things on the map as opposed to just waiting for Wukong to ult on top of you, which I really like that because you want to be in the driver's seat with a composition like this that is so dedicated to diving and shutting down the enemy team. You don't want to be waiting for the enemy team to be jumping onto you and then peeling back. You want to be in the driver's seat already, and teleport's going to enable you to do that if you are Corrin on this Corki. You can get really cheeky angles, possibly really great packages with that TP. Karma's, of course, going to match that so that she can at least match the roam. So, I mean, all in all, it's looking good. Lulu taking the exhaust. That's the smart choice. She's going to have to protect the Ezreal from these dives that can be set up very easily, and exhaust is a good way to kind of have like a gotcha card. Commit more people here, or we're probably going to turn this on you. And Ezreal Lulu can turn fights very, very quickly. But I do want to just call out the Spirit Blossom Thresh skin. Oh my gosh, I love that skin. Oh.
I know that our viewers with the drafter can't see that skin, but you will see it in game. It is Sexy Boy Thresh. Apparently, there weren't enough cosplayers of Thresh, and he was, to be fair, his... oh, there it is. You actually do have it showing up. Man, Monocle on Broadcaster is absolutely awesome. So one of the spicy things that we get is that Thresh is a very difficult champion to cosplay just because of his nature. And then they're like, hey, we need more Thresh cosplayers. So we're just going to make a mostly human version so we can get some sexy boy times in here. But we are loading onto Summoner's Rift. Game number 1, Booyah Exiles taking on CGC. And like true NA form, we are straight into a pause because they know we got to break down this game a little bit more. And I know the very first thing to always start games off discussing is where do the junglers prioritize? Because both definitely aren't a level 2 Lee Sin or Graves dive immediately and look for, basically red buff and then go kill someone. They are going to need to farm up, probably back once or twice before they start to make plays on the map. But where do you see them prioritizing their time?
I mean, I would love to see just basically clears and let the laners do their thing. Maybe show some pressure in the top lane, gank the Maokai before he gets too tanky here for Booyah. But other than that, I mean, these lanes are pretty stagnant. They're not super volatile. The top lane, there's some CC follow-up, like I said earlier. But other than that, early on, these lanes are pretty stagnant. Maybe some gank potential on the bot side for Booyah. But the Ezreal's very, very slippery. The Lulu could potentially get caught up, but if she's playing properly, it should be rather difficult to get onto her, especially with Ezreal just wanting to absorb all of that pressure anyways. On the flip side of things, Wukong, he has some decent ganks if he has CC follow-up, but the only lane that he has CC follow-up in is the top side, and ganking a set can get pretty nasty if you're not 100% sure where the Volibear is. Once he stacks up his shield, his Fury or his Rage, and then he pops the Haymaker, he can turn a 2v1 very, very quickly. When you think you've got him, he just kind of regains all of his health, kind of similar to Tahm Kench in that respect. So unless you're 100% sure you've got him, then don't go for it. Until then, you might want to be just power farming to 6 if you are Filipino Asian boy, so that you can come to this mid lane, potentially bait out the bait out the Valkyrie from Corki with a tether from Kyrie, and then, you know, jump in, pop the ulti, put your damage combo down, and hopefully you'll have a dead Corki, and then start to get yourself advantages that way. And then, of course, post 6, the world opens up here for Jay Crazy on this Volibear, as he does get to just turn off towers for the dive. So I would like to see 4-man bot, lots and lots and lots of 4-man bot whenever possible. There is not too much 4-man bot, in my opinion, here for Booyah Exiles. At least picking up the Lulu, you know.
It's a true party in the bot lane. We want to see everyone be invited, especially if you're Booyah Exiles. It's invites to all friends. It's not a selective, you know, group down there. Everyone is welcome. So we'll see how long it takes for those sorts of things to happen, especially as these days there is just so much prioritization around the Drakes. We last week saw multiple teams hit that soul point. I don't think any went Elder. Maybe game 2 did have one Elder Drake. Yes, at the very, very tail end. The very last fight was an Elder Drake.
I remember
fight.
that.
But anyway,
Seal.
Jay Crazy is coming in with that Volibear level 3, forces out the flash as well as the stun onto full ride. The Lightning got a forceful ride to back up, trying to use those roots to get away from the Volibear. He's been able to find the knockback. Are they going to burn a flash on angry top lane to try to drag him back in? They do not. And full ride escapes at level 2 with a 2-man invade.
So he does. They trade jungle flash for top flash there, but some good moves from full ride to actually. Oh, ADC ganked IRL, says Cord. But anyways, in that top lane, we see full ride kind of walking past towards the tower, and it's kind of like a question mark moment. What's going on here? But Jay Crazy, I don't think fully realized what exactly full ride was going for. He W's back and then is able to get the Q to make more distance. Once that gap is made, angry top laner is forced to flash and then E, Facebreaker, if he wants to do it, but I believe the Facebreaker was on cooldown. And do you really want to commit your flash at that point for kind of a maybe play? I don't think so. I think it's better to just let full ride burn his flash, trade the flash for the jungler for the flash on the top laner, have that advantage moving forward. But as we can see right now, full ride and Filipino Asian Boy looking for some revenge here, as Jay Crazy, with no flash in the river a little bit, potentially could get jumped on here, could get dicey.
Yep, and there's some options to try to punish this Volibear that already has that flash down. But again, keep in mind, full ride also has his flash down. He doesn't have a whole lot of health, and both angry top laners you're mentioning could kind of drop into that lane. Corin the cat on that Corki, it's a little bit of alliteration there, could also roam up from the mid lane. While he does not have the package, he does have Valkyrie, so he can still get involved in these early game fights. Interesting to note, though, he did decide to start Cull, so he knew that in this early game, he probably was just going to be more passively farming because it is a Karma, and it's so hard to shove a Karma out of lane that doesn't want to be shoved out of lane. And so instead, you're simply saying, hey, okay, it's a farm for farm game. I'll just sit and farm a little faster than you because I've got a Cull.
Yeah, I really like that call here. And that call in and of itself is probably going to make Corin say, hey, just run away, I want to farm, but that's not going to be
an Asian Boy is going to go down. Jay Crazy gets the turnaround, solos him out, and now Corki is here dropping that Valkyrie, getting a little bit of burn, and gets the kill as well onto full ride. CGC were not prepared for Booyah Exiles to go full aggression as soon as that pause was over.
Yeah, Jay Crazy just immediately turns Filipino Asian Boy, tries to flash away, but the red buff has already been put on him, flashes into his death, and angry top laner, like you said, with the rotation down, does get to burn his flash to secure the kill onto full ride. Corin with the good rotation. He says, even though I have a Cull and I want to farm, I also want to farm champions, and this one's looking pretty free. Picks up the kill onto full ride, and that brings Booyah Exiles up 2-0. Looking pretty good so far.
And the amazing thing about that for Booyah Exiles is that Jay Crazy didn't have flash. He just turned and started punching his way with those big paws onto Filipino Asian Boy, burns the flash on the Wukong, and still picks up the kill. Then they get the kill onto full ride as well. This is absolutely massive for Booyah Exiles in this early game because you have kills on both your mid laner Corki, who also has the Cull to stack up gold, and on your jungle Volibear, who you want to be impacting the bottom lane, scaling him faster to get to that level 6 to start those turret dives. He's already a level ahead of Filipino Asian Boy. That could have been the play that determines this game.
Yeah, I mean, early on, a huge lead, almost 1k gold lead at the 4-minute mark. That's really substantial, and that takes a lot of time off of your mid laner and your jungler just right off, or sorry, your top laner and your jungler right off the bat. Full ride did not burn his teleport to get back to lane, which I can appreciate because you're going to need that for these late game, for these mid game, or Sorry, excuse me. Saw a little action going on here in the mid lane. For these dives that could potentially happen bot side, you need to be able to teleport in on those. But the Sky Splitter for Volibear, that's one thing that I want to talk about. Volibear's E Sky Splitter. When he puts down the AoE, it has a delay on it, so you can't see exactly where he puts it on. So I think Filipino Asian Boy, once he saw that it was on top of him instead of like away, where to give Jay Crazy a shield towards his blue buff, he kind of just got caught off guard. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually getting turned on. So Jay Crazy gets a huge shield. It's a big amount of damage and a slow on a Filipino Asian Boy. And then just with the stun, it's just so much damage that comes out of nowhere. He just was not ready for it. And gets punished super hard for going just a little too deep. And then Full Ride is unfortunately caught without flash out of position. Oh, speaking of getting caught.
Yeah, has to flash over the wall, take the blast cone out as well as that little pinch move from Booyah Exiles to able to come in, burning more flashes, taking more resources away from CGC, and now controlling vision around this Drake.
Yeah, the early game's looking really, really good right now. Oh, wow.
Wall of Flesh with the flash play. They've been able to pull Turtle, but they don't care. They want the Lulu, and they're going to get the TP from Maokai. This could be a huge play because they also have the set coming in as well. Siggy's in a little bit of trouble, backing away, Full Ride, trying to run, but played back in by the Thresh. That should be the Maokai going down, and this is where Booyah Exiles not only hit that level 10, and they are turning it up, but with a misplay from CGC on the teleport from Full Ride, it's going to 11 because they're starting up the Drake.
I think that CGC are looking a little bit twitchy, maybe nervous almost, because Full Ride, I mean, the kill on Lulu, yes, it happens, it's unfortunate. Brand had a great play, but the teleport afterwards from Full Ride is not advised, right? Best case scenario, he's teleporting into a 3v2, which you really don't want to do, and you have to understand, Angry top laner, his teleport doesn't just disappear because Full Ride teleports. So now, worst case scenario, you're teleporting into a 3v4, and then potentially losing the Drake on top of that. If Full Ride keeps his teleport up, then potentially they buy enough time for Filipino Asian Boy to get into position. Maybe they can contest the Drake. But unfortunately, he teleports right into the thick of things, ends up throwing his life away for basically nothing, and then the Dragon goes over to Booyah. But overall, great plays from Booyah. You know, being aggressive on the map very, very early on, saying, we're going to put the screws to you right now, set up our position early on. Oh.
Wait, hold on. Brandsy actually grabbing the hook onto Turtle, almost throwing him underneath the turret. Unfortunately, the minion was there. Do you want to throw quickly to the chat and say, Lord Reeves, love the analysis coming out. It's really cool, A, to see you back. Welcome back, Lord Reeves. It's been a while, but good to have you returning and hanging out with us. But also, love the breaking down of the game and throwing in your thoughts on what's happening. Love it when Twitch chat gets involved. I agree that the TP from Set, not exactly necessary, but he did get an assist, and that does kind of gold-wise set him up a little bit, even if he doesn't have the TP to be able to use for any of those other skirmishes. But the other factor is they took the Drake. So that means that it's another 4 minutes before the Drake's going to show up again. By that time, his TP will be back off a cooldown, and the next objective is going to be the Rift Herald on the top side of the map, which he doesn't need TP for. So while it is a bit of a loss, it's not that big of a loss. And Full Ride, recognizing that he has full lost this top lane, picks up a call to try to bounce back the gold later on into the game. But he's going to be having fun for a while. I didn't notice, though. Have you seen it? Yeah, it's 30
That's
CS
insane.
per set. I didn't even recognize the fact that he is destroying this set in farm. Angry top lane, you may have won the TP battle bot lane, but you're in trouble as Hold On Brandsy comes up, finding a little hook there. Filipino Asian Boy using his ultimate to escape.
I think I lost you there for a little bit there, Jake. Oh. Okay. Jungle lag. Okay, we're getting another pause out as we see some lag.
I feel good about this, though, because if we are now 3 pauses for 3 in game 1, that means that it's unlikely that we'll get pauses through the rest of the games tonight, because normally it's a pause per game, and we've had 3 in this one game, so we should be pause-free in game 2 and 3 if Karma, cares. Now, Karma's in this game, and, we'll see if Kari actually cares, but...
Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But don't jinx it too soon, knock on wood. And a tradition dictates that there should be a pause at least at the beginning of every game. But anyways, I digress. Booyah Exiles. Still, even though they've been making some great plays on the map, they've gotten that dragon, they got some kills bot side, they're still only about 1k up. And I think a lot of that is just, what happened to your farm, Angry top laner? Like, he's down 30 CS, and he's basically had a lock on this top lane for the entire game. So I don't know if maybe he's just... I just can't... At diamond level, missing 30 CS just by missing last hits just doesn't seem like feasible. So maybe, and you know, when Full Ride teleported, I saw when Full Ride teleported, he teleported by his tier 2 tower. So Angry Top Laner wasn't pushed in, because Full Ride was coming back to lane. So I don't know, and even then, if you get pushed in, unless he pushed 30 minions, that's 5 waves onto your tower. That just doesn't make any sense. I can't make heads and tails of it.
My guess is that what happened is when Filipino Asian Boy came up into the top lane initially, and there was that small scuffle up there, the wave ended up because Angry Top Laner came down into the river to help the fight. The wave froze, and Full Ride was able to TP back into that top lane, freeze it just outside of his own turret, which meant Angry Top Laner could only sit and maybe collect a little bit of experience, but it's much scarier as a set to try to grab farm under a turret versus a Maokai who can root you, knock you backwards, all those sorts of things, when as a set, almost all of your hits are AoE based, so you can't even farm with your skills because you're going to be hitting the enemy champion, you're under the turret, you get rooted, you die. So it could have just made his life a lot difficult. That's my best guess as to what happened. Bot lane, though, nice little dark passage from the Thresh, where we still have TPing in from Kyrie in that mid lane, able to hit both members with that Mantra Q in the slow, but Thresh is going to flay. He's actually hooked the Wukong under the turret. That wild growth from Lulu, keeping Filipino alive, but his health bar is ticking lower and lower with the Ignite. He should be able to survive, but it is pinged out and known from Booyah Exiles that he is that low. Seems though that Volibear and Jacorin the Cat on this Corki are focusing mid lane turret down first.
Yeah, I like that call, but I mean, Filipino Asian Boy on the Wukong goes in really, really deep, gets caught, almost dies in her tower, and if we look at the cooldowns, his ultimate isn't even up yet, so what is he diving in for? There wasn't really kill pressure. Sigi and Branzy were both about 50% HP. If you have ultimate, yeah, I can see, you know, buying enough time for your Ezreal to get up there and actually put the damage out, but barring that, there's really nothing to be gained by diving there. Flash for flash in the top lane.
Interesting flash from Angry Top Laner, because I don't think even if he had landed the face breaker, that would be a guaranteed kill. And he was in range to use his ultimate, the showstopper, and just decided not to. So, interesting choice, but at least you now know that Full Ride's flash is down, so that's a little bit of a feels good. He's still at 50 marks on his call. We have 3 marks in this game, ladies and gentlemen. Just take a note of this. Maokai's got a call, Ezreal's got a call, Corki's got a call. What's next? Ash, are you going to build a call too? Let's make it a full call game, as we should have had Lucian for the calling as well.
Oh my god, that's too much call. But speaking of calls, Corrin's almost done. Only 2 CS. Very good CS this game. Not perfect, of course, but still pretty darn close. And Kyrie right behind him at 96. So, but I mean, because of how like stagnant, like you said, how kind of passive this early game was in this mid lane, I'm gonna give a pretty big advantage over to Corrin, just getting 300 gold back into his economy just for picking a call. And he got punished. He didn't get punished for it. In fact, he got a kill early on. So pretty great stuff here for Corrin. I'm liking what I'm seeing on the Corki so far. But Manamune Ash. What are your thoughts on that one, Jake?
I don't hate it. It is something that actually earlier today, when XLNC Esports had the honor of being able to cast some EU games, they talked about. We'll comment more in a moment. There's the flash from the Karma in the mid lane. Not really shocked that she's able to slip away fast and furious, as well as able to get away. But they didn't see the Drake going the way of CGC. Thresh is still in position, might be able to throw out a death sentence and hook that Lulu. Blast Cone, though, saving Turtle 4 now. But here's Volibear. He's trying to find the stun. It's onto Lulu. They focus, and he doesn't quite get the ultimate in range of the turret, but they still have plenty of damage to take Ezreal down. They're looking for the Wukong next, but Corrin is going to fall as the Wukong should be able to slip out. Now Jay Crazy is in a lot of trouble. His ultimate's about to go away, just able to get out in time. Unfortunately, the Thresh bringing in that Maokai with the root as Angry Top Lane is coming to the bottom lane. Showstopper to grab himself Ratchet. There's the Haymaker. Just misses! But Lulu still goes down. Is able to be finished off as Siggy's trying to taste for Jay Crazy, healing up with that smite off a Full Ride. Should be able to take down the Maokai, who heals right back. It's a healing fiesta between these tanks, but Wukong's rejoined the fight as Ash has shown up as well. Siggy pumping out the damage, decides to leave Kyrie alone. It did end up going a Drake to CGC, but Booyah Exiles won the fight by a handout.
Yeah, Sigi having to burn heal there, but then the heal coming through from Full Ride, even though he's 0-3, still proving that he can tank in these fights and stay in it for a long time, which is exactly what CGC are going to need if they want to mount a comeback. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, Sigi picks up 4 kills, which is absolutely phenomenal for himself. Screw the Manamune, item doesn't matter anymore. You've just got such a massive gold lead now that you're set to sail. Great stuff here from Sigi. I mean, that team fight was just absolute chaos. Corrin going in super deep to pick up the kill on the turtle, which I can respect. Gets traded back in turn, but then double TPs coming down from these top laners. Angry top laner showing up a little bit late. Puts a lot of his damage there onto Ratchet, which, I mean, I can respect it. If the Lulu is left uncontested and allowed to shield up, she just gets more value the longer she gets to do her thing in these fights. But unfortunately missed the Haymaker there at the end, but had the Cutlass to seal the deal. But, I mean, what a crazy fight here in the bot lane. Just absolute chaos erupting there at the Tribush as they go for the dive.
And the big thing, as you were noting earlier from CGC, who is it that kills went on? It's the Wukong and the Lulu, not your priority targets of this Ezreal. Still sitting at 0-1 as his KDA. You look to Booyah Exiles, you see a 4-0 Ashe, a 2-1 Corki, a Volibear ganking top lane again. Jay Crazy is crazy on these ganks, always looking for blood. I don't know that they have enough in the tank to grab full ride as that ultimate from the Maokai going to come out, rooting up the two members of Booyah Exiles, knocked up as well. Volibear in trouble. The shielding from the Thresh. The death sentence hooks full ride. Corki's backing away with the Valkyrie. I think Corrin the Cat still might be going down because Lulu's come up as well. These supports are spending more time in the top lane than they are their own lane. What are they doing? But the Blast Cone will get Jay Crazy out alive. It's a 2-for-1 trade. No, not even 2-for-1 trade. It's a 2-0 because they didn't kill full ride.
I mean, I love the rotations from these supports, though. Yes, they are spending more time in the top lane, but if you look at the bot lane, that is not a volatile matchup by any means. You've got an Ashe and an Ezreal. Ashe is relatively low damage, even though she's 4-0 right now, which is kind of scary. If she lands an arrow on Turtle, Turtle is definitely dead, but Turtle always has Arcane Shift to just get out of it, so he can farm relatively safely. So if Turtle is just going to be farming super safe, and Brand doesn't really have a whole lot of kill pressure in the lane necessarily, that's gonna free up Ratchet to go and roam, right? So Lulu naturally just gets to roam because Ezreal's gonna absorb all the pressure. So Brand Z is like, well, am I just gonna sit here and lane, you know, absorbing XP from my Ashe, or now I have to go roam? So they both end up going to roam, and I think that Thresh's roams are just a little bit stronger. But in that situation, so like you were saying earlier, the kills landed here on Filipino Asian Boy, which generally isn't in the game plan because Ezreal's gonna be most of the team fight damage. But, ooh, a little bit of damage getting traded here in the mid lane. But in the skirmishes, that's where Wukong shines. In that 2v2, it gets turned super hard. It takes full ride tanks up for a long time. That buys enough time for Filipino Asian Boy show up in the Tribush, put the ultimate down. And I don't think Angry Top Laner was expecting just the amount of damage that was going to come out of this. The ultimate there from the Wukong, and just tears up the fight. The cleanup comes through. Lulu's there to match any of the roams and the counter engages. Corrin not able to really get anything going on there. And the gold starts to shift back in the favor a little bit for the side of CGC.
A little bit, but we do have Booyah Exiles picking up that first turret in the mid lane, as well as grabbing the Rift Herald on top of it. So credit to Corrin the Cat. We've already talked about how he is a staple player for Booyah Exiles. And in a lot of those scuffles and everything, he's been able to shove those waves in to deal a lot of damage to the turret. So he picks that up practically solo, besides that one Rift Herald push earlier in the game. And it's definitely good because in that top lane, you can see Booyah Exiles' turret is very close to dropping up there as well. So that first turret gold is certainly nice to grab for yourself and your team as a whole. Now both teams approaching this Infernal Drake. Who is it that's going to start it up? It is Booyah Exiles.
And I mean, both the teleports are down for these top laners, so they are going to be locked on the other side of the map right now. And I mean, right now it really feels like the mid game is squarely on Filipino Asian Boy's shoulders on this Wukong. He has all the power for his team right now. He's going to have, if they're going to make a go of this, it's going to be with Filipino's damage. So if he gets CC'd, if he catches a Flay, if he catches a hook, if he catches an Ashe arrow, if he catches a face breaker, if he catches a Volibear stun, all of those things that he kind of has to dodge out in order to be effective in this fight. We'll have to see. Maybe Lulu can get some clutch polymorphs, maybe a nice ultimate off, knocking up most of the members.
He takes the Drake, are you kidding me? Able to steal it for Booyah Exiles as Wukong was diving in, but Jay Crazy is here, dropping the damage, and he gets the shield. He uses the Stormbringer to bring the storm onto Turtle. The Turtle will fall, and people were concerned, about the mana on the Ashe, but all these volleys she's tossing out, helping the team escape. She still gets caught out, though, as Filipino Asian Boy will be able to take her down. Looking for Corrin the Cat. Next, it is traded at least 1-for-1 in his death, but it ends up being, I believe, a 4-for-3 trade. Drake going the way of Booyah Exiles.
Yeah, I think the Drake and the Shutdown are the two major pickups here. Everything else is kind of, ooh, A little bit of face breaking in the mid lane. Mid lane tower is going to go down at the end of the day, but angry top laner in a bad position.
Yep, the jump, the showstopper from Angry Top Laner. He says, I may be in a bad position, but I'm going to turn it around. You are the one in the bad position, Karma. A little bit too close, dropping her, not really caring about full ride. And that's something you're probably going to see more and more as the game goes on, is from the side of Booyah Exiles. Ignore the tank. Who cares about Maokai? As long as you're not getting rooted by him, get these carries and send them to the fountain first, then deal with the tanks later.
Yeah, I love the fact in that last team fight, Booyah really just full sended it onto Turtle. They were burning flashes, whatever it took to get onto Turtle, they got onto him, because he is the primary source of damage. Now, they also, while they were kind of tunneling here onto Turtle, they did forget about Filipino Asian Boy, the Wukong, the 5-3 now, still has a ton of damage himself, right? If Turtle is left uncontested, even though he's 0-2, he is going to do more sustained damage overall, but the burst damage that comes out of Filipino, and if he can duck and dodge out of these fights with the help of the Lulu, he can potentially engage, re-engage, disengage, re-engage, and just kind of do the whole Wukong tricky thing, and get a whole ton of damage out just kind of like sneakily, not that you might not expect, right? So, and he has so much staying power with the Karma, with the Lulu, right? He's going to be in these fights for a very, very, very long time if he's left uncontested. But as you were saying earlier, Sigi's getting a lot of damage out onto this Ashe. Corrin is pretty fed with the 4-3, finishing up the Triforce. Manamune ticking away. There's a lot of damage to be had for both these teams, but if they're CC'd, knocked up from this Wukong, it's going to be really tricky as they're forced to reposition or risk just dying outright to that initial burst.
Yep, and exactly what you're saying is that with the Ashe and the Corki, and you say, hey, CGC, why don't you pour all of your resources onto this Wukong because he could be your carry while the Ezreal continues to kind of stack and farm back to get into the game. The problem is Ashe, while she's not mobile, has her ultimate. Wukong shows up, she just ults him in the face and walks away. She don't care. Corki, he's got Valkyrie. He's going to hop away. His package is going to start to come through as well. And so it's going to be difficult for you to get onto those, especially when Thresh can be peeling for them. So the question is positioning for Filipino Asian Boy's Wukong. Can he find the right angle to slip in for a flank to get onto these carries? Bot side showstopper used by Set, starting up a fight with Kyrie. He doesn't even need the Volibear. That's actually slightly disrespectful because you could at least give the assist to Jay Crazy. But no, Jay Crazy's literally running in and Set's like, this is mine!
Perfect stuff. I mean, I'd rather have the kill on your Set because you need your Set to be strong on the sideline, right? He has to contest the Maokai. So if it were me, I'd rather have it on my Set. But you can make a case for adding more beef to your giant Volibear, building Cinder Hulk, looking at the Thornmail already. But you know, a nice solo kill here from Angry Top Laner Kyrie, just disrespecting the face break. Really, she's trying to do the Karma thing, you know, where you tether and walk away and just be a real nuisance. But she doesn't have Frozen Fist. She doesn't have the tank that a Karma usually builds. So she's relatively squishy here, opting for a more AP supportive route with the Athenes and the Ludens. So she has to be very careful with how close she gets. She can get bursted on very, very quickly.
Congratulations, though, to the Ezreal. He finished off the Mirror Mana first out of the 3 of the Manamunes that were in the game. So while he may have lost a couple of the battles, he has won the war on stacking that item first and finishes off his Trinity Force. So now Turtle is actually at a pretty hefty spike on damage. If a fight starts out where there's not every single member of Booyah Exiles partying in the one particular fight, he should be able to output some really good bursts, especially onto those squishy backliners if he finds the right angle for those spells.
Yeah, and I want to go back to a point that you were talking about where, you know, if Filipino... Oh, never mind.
Yeah, they're going to start a fight, and Ezreal's already gone because he's been caught out. Nice little ultimate there from... Or not Valkyrie, ultimate, excuse me. The Empowered Valkyrie, package used by Corrin to knock the Lulu back into the rest of the team. I cannot speak. We're warming up as the first game of the night. Infernal Drake going the way of Booyah Exiles. Uncontested, unsurprising. CGC backing away from it.
Yeah, Turtle caught with his pants way, way down, catching an Ashe arrow to the face, and the immediate follow-up is just absolute destruction. Poor Turtle. I mean, if you're going to play Ezreal, you have to play way, way far back from these objectives, especially when you don't have the full vision there. But he ends up going down, but... Oh. Jump away and get the lantern. All right. I like it. Just get your reset.
Stormbringer
Looks a little funny.
a pretty painful, expensive ultimate to use just to escape. But I guess if you really want to live that badly, you can wait the cooldown for it to come back up.
Oh yeah, we should be farming for a little bit here. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jay Crazy's gonna want to get a reset, which takes about a good 30-40 seconds off the cooldown anyway. So he only really has like active cooldown time of like being out there on the map of about a minute, maybe a little bit less. So it's not the worst loss in the world. If you needed to fight immediately afterward, then yes, it would be terrible. But he is going to reset, burn some of that time, or maybe just clearing some camps. So not the most horrible, terrible use of the Stormbringer to get out there. Better than handing a kill over. But anyways, so I want to go way back to Filipino Asian boy, right? So he wants to dive in on Sigi. He wants to dive in on Corrin the Cat, right? He's got the damage for it. He's got a finished warrior enchantment. He's looking at the Death Dance right now with a finished Blight Cleaver. So that is plenty of armor shred, plenty of damage. So if he can get in there and then get a Lulu ultimate stacked, that's a ton of knockup time that you're spent just not able to do anything. Potentially a carry could die in that time frame. So it's pretty risky here for Sigi and Corrin the Cat if they're not positioned properly. There might not be time to reposition if the dive comes in fast enough. But on the flip side of things, Corrin, you said that Turtle just finished his Manamune and his Triforce. Well, how about Manamune, Triforce, and Infinity Edge here for Corrin the Cat? Finishing 3 items there on that Corki. That's going to be so much damage if he is just left uncontested. We've all seen it, you know, the Corki Gatlin just tearing people apart, the missiles coming in. It's devastating amounts of damage if he's just allowed to do what he wants. And a ton of mobility with the Valkyrie. So, looks like they are going to be spoiling for a fight here for Booyah.
Yep, TP coming in from the Karma into the bottom lane. Maokai is trying to start things off, going to go ahead and find himself rooting up the Axe. They've taken her out very early on. Members of Booyah Exiles trying to retreat, but Wukong coming in from behind. Found a good flank, finds a knockup as well. You can drop the ultimates all you want, but you're still going to be going down. This is a near ace from CGC. They take down the set as well. It's Baron to CGC with one misplay from Booyah Exiles.
Okay, so like we were saying earlier, positioning. Sigi, you are way too far forward. What are you doing? You have a Volibear and a Set and a Thresh. Let them go in first. Let them find the pick. You don't need to walk up and throw these volleys out there looking for volley, not the champion Volibear, the volley of the Ashe ability, Ashe's W. To slow these guys down, there's no point for that. You're just opening yourself up for a flash W from Full Ride, which is exactly what he does. Full Ride, full sends it onto Sigi, absolutely bursting him down immediately. He didn't even need Filipino Asian Boy's damage. Just the follow-up from the Turtle and Kyrie was more than enough to absolutely nuke Sigi. So then Filipino Asian Boy comes up with a flank from the bot side of the river, immediately onto Corrin the Cat, and Corrin the Cat watches his life bar just vaporize right before him. He doesn't get to do his damage either, so good positioning on the flank angles there from Filipino Asian Boy and Ratchet to be able to get a really nice flank angle, do so much damage, force out the carries. There is no damage once Corrin is forced out and Sigi is dead here on the side of Booyah Exiles. Those two champions are absolutely essential to Booyah's team fight. If one of them goes down, it's hard. If two of them goes down, it's impossible. But here we see another pick in the mid lane.
Yep, Enchant Crystal Arrow from Ashe. Actually, gets the help with the turret for a couple of shots onto Full Ride. Whoa, Kyrie coming from the side, burning down Siggy. The Ashe not dead just yet. The Dark Passage Lantern from Brand Z saving the ADC, but the damage coming out from this Karma is a little more than people are necessarily expecting. Even the Tether going to drop Corrin a little bit as more Qs coming out. The poke really starting to hurt because the poke from the Ezreal and Karma combined together with the protectiveness of Lulu is just being a bit too much for the health bars of Booyah Exiles, and where things were going their way for so long, it's starting to fall off. The train is dropping off of the tracks. They're losing their mid lane inhibitor. This could be Booyah Exiles staring death in the face.
Oh, I don't think you want to engage here.
They're going to find the Lantern, but it's only the Maokai. They're drawing back in. Stormbringer from the Volibear, but Wukong trying to go in. Showstopper from the set, dropping every ultimate. They've taken down the Maokai, but at what cost? The death sentence from Thresh will land onto the Karma, but she cannot be killed. Filipino Boy goes into the back line. It's the ace for CGC. After taking out the inhibitor, they only lost their tank and support mid laner. They should be able to finish this game off with Baron. And at the 27-minute mark, say 25-minute mark, because the last 3 minutes were this one fight, they take the game, and CGC will go up 1-0 over Booyah Exiles, where it felt like they had the game in their hands for so much of it.
I mean, at the end there, well, there's several things we have to talk about how that game ended. So Kyrie, recognizing his position. I am not a supportive cleric-y, LCK and LCS have kind of told us, oh, if you pick Karma in the mid lane, you're just going to build Athenes and Ardent and be a support bot, right? Kyrie's like, no. I'll build the Athenes, sure, but I'm going to get a Leandries and a Ludens, and I'm just going to be a terror for these squishies on your team. And she absolutely was forcing Sigi out in that second to last fight. But so Brand Z at the very end there lands a hook onto Full Ride, right? And with the game on the line, that's a risky fight, right? That could go either way. Maybe J Crazy gets up there in time, jumps in, and does enough damage to really set it off. Or maybe Full Ride is just way too tanky to actually go down, and the pick is completely useless. All it is really handing CGC a free engage. So with the game on the line there, I don't like the call to go in on that hook. I would have rather see, okay, we have to reset, reevaluate, maybe ward off the next defense. Their Baron's probably going to expire by the time they reset, get themselves together to push out again. And then we can maybe make something happen on the map there. But those possibilities are extinguished as soon as you take that hook there in the mid lane and take that fight and lose that fight. The game is just over. If you lose that fight there, you lose the game. Whereas if you lose a fight somewhere else, maybe you don't necessarily lose the game if you buy time for your inhib to come up, and depending on where on the map you lose it. But that is my spiel for the day. We still have potentially 2 more games going, but CGC already off to a great head start tonight. Kind of to our predictions, is it going to be a 2-1 or 2-0? Maybe? Or can Booyah do the reverse sweep? We have to see as we come back.
Right after this intermission.